Alright, sonny boy, let me tell you a little story. I caught a tremendous fish and held him beside the boat, half out of water with my hook fast in a corner of his mouth. He didn't fight. He hadn't fought at all. He hung a grunting weight, battered and venerable and homely. Here and there, his brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper, and its pattern of darker brown was like wallpaper. Shapes like full-blown roses, stained and lost through age. He was speckled with barnacles, fine rosettes of lime, and infested with tiny white sea lice. And underneath 2 or 3, rags of green weed hung down. While his gills were breathing in the terrible oxygen, the frightening gills, fresh and crisp with blood, that can cut so badly. I thought of the coarse white flesh, packed in like feathers, the big bones and the little bones, the dramatic reds and blacks of his shiny entrails, and the pink swim bladder like a big peony. I looked into his eyes, which were far larger than mine, but shallower and yellowed, the irises backed and packed with tarnished tinfoil, seen through the lenses of old scratched isinglass. They shifted a little, but not to return my stare. It was more like the tipping of an object toward the light. I admired his sullen face and the mechanism of his jaw, and then I saw from his lower lip, if you could call it a lip, grim, wet, and weapon-like, hung 5 old pieces of fish line, or 4 in a wire leader, with the swivel still attached, with all their 5 big hooks grown firmly in his mouth. A green line frayed at the end, where he broke it, 2 heavier lines, and a fine black thread, still crimped from the strain and snap when it broke and he got away. Like meadows with their ribbons, frayed and wavering, a 5-haired beard of wisdom trailing with his aching jaw. I stared and stared, and victory filled up the little rented boat from the pool of bilge, where oil had spread a rainbow around the rusted engine. To the baler rusted orange, the sun-cracked thwarts, the oarlocks on their strings, the gunwales, until everything was rainbow, 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 and I let the fish go.
This is the annotation of The Fish by Elizabeth Bishop. So I caught a tremendous fish and held him beside the boat, half out of water, with my hook fast in a corner of his mouth. So I caught lets us know this is in first person. He didn't fight, he hadn't fought at all. He hung a grunting weight, battered and venerable and homely. So this hints that the fish has been through a lot, and we're now aware of his age. And venerable means showing respect to something old. Here and there, his brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper, which is a simile, and its pattern of darker brown was like wallpaper. Shapes like full-blown roses, stained and lost through age. So she uses familiar images to understand the fish she caught and what it looks like. He was speckled with barnacles, fine rosettes of lime, and infested with tiny white sea lice, and underneath 2 or 3 rags of green weed hung down. So this is more just vivid and imagery of what the fish looks like, and she is just comparing things to what she knows. While his gills were breathing in terrible oxygen, the frightening gills, fresh and crisp with blood that can cut so badly, and then the dash is just a pause in the writer's thought process. I thought of the coarse white flesh packed in like feathers, another simile, the big bones and the little bones, the dramatic reds and blacks of his shiny entrails, and the pink swim bladder, like a big peony, which is flowering plant, and this is just another simile. I looked into his eyes, which were far larger than mine, but shallower and yellowed. The irises backed and packed with tarnished tinfoil, seen through the lenses of old scratched isinglass. So the description of his eyes, the shallow and the yellowness, it just is another way to let us know that the fish is really old. And the isinglass is a gelatin obtained from fish. So they shifted a little, but not to return my stare. It was more like the tipping of an object toward the light. I admired his sullen face, the mechanism of his jaw, and then I saw that from his lower lip. So the poem shifts towards admiration for the fish rather than the joy of her catching the fish. if you could call it a lip. Grim, wet, and weapon-like hung 5 old pieces of fish line, or 4, and a wire leader with a swivel still attached with all their 5 big hooks. So the fish has previous battle scars from other catches, and this almost makes the speaker feel guilty for capturing the fish. Grown firmly in his mouth, a green line frayed at the end where he broke it, 2 heavier lines. So the fish is a survivor. And a fine black thread still crimped from the strain and snap when it broke, and he got away, like metals with their ribbons frayed and wavering. So it's another comparison to when the fish broke free. A 5-haired beard of wisdom trailing from his aching jaw, I stared, and victory filled up the little rented boat from the pool of bilge, which is dirty water at the bottom of a boat, where oil had spread a rainbow around the rusted engine. So the rainbow is a reference to the biblical story of Noah, the flood, and the rainbow covenant. To the baler rusted orange, the sun-cracked thwarts, which is used for a rowing seat, the oarlocks of their strings, and the gunnels, which is top edge of boat, until everything was rainbow, rainbow, rainbow. And I let the fish go. So the speaker feels respect for the fish and all it has been through. So now we're going to go over the soapstone for the poem. So the speaker is Elizabeth Bishop, and she writes this in a first-person style. The occasion is catching/letting go of an old fish. The audience is general, but it could also be people who enjoy fishing. The purpose is to look at things deeper and be more insightful. She sees the fish as more than something to catch, but someone who has endured a lot. The subject is her catching a fish, and the tone at first is joyful because she caught the fish, but it turns into an admiring tone after examining the fish and its past. She learns that this is a fish who has been through a lot, and it changes how she sees it.